Good morning. We are going to be comparing fractions. You've been working this week on a fraction review, things that we've already covered, just looking at it again. So let's talk comparing fractions. We haven't ever done this, but this is going to be super easy because we've compared numbers, and that's super easy for you, so you know how to do this. Let's start with this worksheet that looks like this. If you don't have it, push pause and go get it. And then let's look together. It's a little hard to see. I already moved in from the back porch because it was too glary. But I think we can make it work. This first one, we're just going to do a couple together. This first one says 2/5. So your first job is to make your model show 2/5. So when I look at this box, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's cut into 5 equal pieces. So I know I can call it fifths. But I need to shade 2/5. So if I'm shading 2/5, I'm going to shade 1, 2. Because this is 1/5, this would be 2/5. So 1, 2. That model now shows 2/5. 2/5 are shaded, 3/5 are not shaded. Now in the second model, it says 4/5. So again, I'm going to look. I know that these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It takes 5 to make the whole thing. So a good name for these are fifths. I can call each one of these 1/5. So if I need to model 4/5, I'm going to shade 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. Now, I finally get to the job of comparing because I'm going to look at both of my models. Now that I have them shaded, I'm going to look at both models and I'm going to determine which one has the most shaded. Does 2/5 or does 4/5 have more shaded? Well, if you said 4/5, you're right because it's more pieces are shaded. It takes up a bigger amount. It has a greater value. So I'm going to put 2 dots by the one that has the greater value. And I'm going to put 1 dot by the one that has the lesser value, just like we do when we're comparing numbers. And then, of course, I'm going to connect the dots to complete my sign. So if I think about it, what is that sign saying about the first one compared to the second one? It's saying that the first one is less than. When it's pointing that way, that sign says less than. So when I read this, what we call an inequality, I'm going to say less than. So read that with me. 2/5 is less than 4/5. One more time. Say it with me. 2/5 is less than 4/5. Let's do one more. 3/8 compared to 5/8. So these are eighths because it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to make the whole thing. So I know a good name for each of these pieces is 1/8. If I need to show or model 3/8, then I'm going to shade in 3 of the pieces that we call eighths. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. Now on the next one, I'm going to model 5/8. So I'm actually going to start in the same spot that I did on this one because it's going to make it easier to compare. If I start in the same spot, it makes it easy for my brain to look at it and realize which one's bigger. So I've got 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8. Okay, so 3/8 compared to 5/8. I need to determine which one has the greater value by figuring out which one has more shaded. Well, this one has more shaded, so again, I'm going to put 2 dots by the one that has more shaded, has the greater value. I'm putting 1 dot by the one that has the lesser value, and I'm going to connect the dots by going across to draw my sign. Now, this is the exact same sign that we had here, so I know that it says what? It says less than. It's saying that the first model is less than the second model. So what it's saying is 3/8 is less than 5/8. Will you say that with me, please? 3/8 is less than 5/8. Now, I want you to continue by comparing 3/4 and 1/4. Notice these are written not in words, but in fraction form. 3/4 compared to 1/4. You're going to shade and then draw your sign. 2/6 compared to 5/6. You're going to shade each one and then draw your sign. So I want you to hit pause, do that now, because we're going to come back together on our final one. All right, the final one says, the circles below are the same size and shape. Yeah, so figure 1 and figure 2 are exactly the same size and shape. Which statement best describes the relationship between shaded parts of the circles? So I'm going to be comparing the shaded part. So let's look at this first one, figure 1. First of all, how many parts are there? Well, it's cut into 4 parts. So what's a good name for something we cut into 4 equal parts? If you said fourths, you got it. Now the second question is, how many are shaded? How many of those parts are shaded? Well, I see that 1 is shaded. So I could give that the name 1/4. If you were writing it as a fraction, you could write it like this, 1/4. And if you slanted that line, it would be okay too. Now let's look at the second one. I'm going to start by asking myself, how many equal parts is it cut into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it's 8 equal parts. So what's a good name for that? For each of those parts? Eighths. Now I'm going to ask myself the second question, how many parts are shaded? 1 of those parts are shaded. So a good name for this part is 1/8. And if I were writing it in fractional form, in number form, I would write it like this. 1 out of 8 are shaded, 1/8. So I want you to take a minute to think about that. Think about which one has more shaded, which one has less shaded, which one has more equal parts, which one has less equal parts. Now, after you've thought about that, it's your job to determine which one of these answer choices is true. You're just going to choose one answer choice to be true. A says figure 1 has fewer parts than figure 2 because the shaded part of figure 1 is smaller than the shaded part of figure 2. So think about that. Is the shaded part smaller in figure 1 than 2? And now do B. So write true or not true out to the side of that one. And then answer choice B says figure 2 has more parts than figure 1 because the shaded part of figure 2 is larger than the shaded part of figure 1. So ask yourself, is the shaded part larger in figure 2 than it is in figure 1? When you determine it, write true or not true out to the side. And then look at answer choice C. Figure 1 has fewer parts than figure 2 because the shaded part of figure 1 is larger than the shaded part of figure 2. So think about that and then write true or not true out to the side. And you're going to circle the answer, the one answer choice that is true. Great job, guys. Thanks for following along.